Okay, so this is my second attempt at making this video. The first time OBS decided to not record, so this time I'm going to take precautions and I will be using Audacity too, so it works. Alright, anyway, so yeah. Welcome to the Chunk Stories Development Environment Setup Guide. In this video I'm going to show you how to install the required tools and how to set up your development environment to work on the chunk stories as a developer on the engine side of things, or at least on the core game, not on a mod. I'll make a separate video to show you how to create and load mods in the game, but this video is going to be only about how you can develop from the game for the game itself. So anyway, I'll just start by going to the wiki page that explains all this. And in this video I'm going to start from a blank state. This is a raw Windows 7 VM with nothing installed. I won't be able to show you the game working because this VM is running on VirtualBox, and VirtualBox does not have the necessary OpenDNS support. So when I start the game, it won't work, but it will work on your computer. Don't worry about this. Anyway, this video is basically going to be a more interactive version of this guide. Maybe I can start by... oh yes, and I'll provide timestamps in the video so you can just jump to the part that is relevant to you. So yeah, first I'm going to explain a bit what I'm going on here. The chunk storage project is quite a large one, as you might have figured. And it's split into multiple sub-projects. No, there's a tree here. Tree. Thank you. So first, you have the chunk stories API, or just the API. What this is, it's like an abstracted version of every system the games provides you. So it's an abstracted version of the word data, of the voxel structures, of the well, it's not an abstraction for the entities, but it's their base class that is not fully implemented. It's basically everything, every convention, every data structure modders are supposed to use. And going along with the API, there is chunk stories core. And what core is, it's the vanilla content of the game. So you can think of it like, I mean, everything that is in Minecraft unmodded in the vanilla Minecraft. So all the mobs, all the items, all the blocks definition, whatever, it's all in chunk stories core and not in the API. In the API, you have no definition whatsoever of any type of block of anything. The API is strictly about well, an API, and core is everything the games comes with. So that is stuff like the basic player model, the basic blocks it comes with. So the game ships with a few block types, obviously, so because it wouldn't be very interesting without them. But it also has some interesting stuff like game logic. There's no game logic in the API and no game logic in the implementation. It's all in core. And there is also going to be the rendering path setups. So if you want to make some special shaders mod or something that alters the graphics of the game, you can do that in core or you can do that in a mod. Mods are basically extensions to core or just the API. And yes, a mod does not, and core, do note that core is a mod. It's like the first mod. It's not treated any differently than all of these, but it's technically shipping with the game. So it should be here, but it's there because it's like the game dev part of it. Well, whatever. It's hard to explain. So yeah, basically this is technically the same as this. You could, if you wanted to, entirely rewrite the core and replace it with that rewritten version, and it would work just as well, except the mods that are dependent on the base content would not work. But if you weren't using those, you could just make a total conversion and change this. But then it's not compatible. My advice is either you want to change the vanilla game and you change this and you do a pull request, or either what change you're making are more fits as a mod and you make a mod for it. And again, I'll have some different video to show you how you can work on mods. And working on mods is a lot less bullshit than working on the game itself, because you don't have to handle nearly as much stuff. When you work on this, you work directly on the bleeding edge code and stuff is more complicated. But for the mods, and effectively for core too, since it's a mod, you're just basically writing game code, so it's easy. This is game code, all this, and this is game engine, I'd say. So this is game engine. This comes with the game engine to demonstrate it, and this is what you can make with, basically. Alright, so in practice, what you're going to need for a dev environment is these 3 projects. And these are on my GitHub, so you're gonna need to clone them. But before we can do this, I'm going to go through every dependencies you're going to need and install them for you. Since this is a fresh VM, I can't possibly miss any steps or it won't work. And if it works for me on a fresh VM, it should work for you on whatever system you're on. By the way, the instruction I'm doing are for Windows 7 because I hate Windows 10. And for Linux, it's different, but I figured if you use Linux, you should be able to do the stuff I'm going to show you for Linux properly, or you shouldn't be using Linux in the first place. Okay. And if you use macOS, well, I mean, give me a Mac and maybe I'll give you instructions. But for now, macOS is not something I'm going to support. You can give me a Mac, an Apple something if you want me to have instruction for this. All right. First thing you're going to need is, well, before that even, I'm going to install my favorite text editor, that is Notepad++. It's a very neat text editor. I mean, everything is better than the Windows Notepad, sure. Yeah, this crap, don't use that. Use this. This is good. Let me just check if Audacity is. Yeah, last time it just didn't record and it drove me kind of mad. Okay, you wanna install Notepad++ first because it's basically what you're going to use to view and edit any text file in the game. Because if you use regular Notepad, you're going to have a bad time. It won't. It will fuck up the returns, the line returns, whatever. It sucks. Use Notepad++. It's good. It's open source, whatever. It's good. Use that. Okay, install this. It's the typical Windows experience, so you just click next until it's installed. And there we are, we have Notepad++, brilliant. Okay, next up we need Git. No, not GitHub, Git. Thank you, Firefox. Yes, I'd like to have my result in English. I don't speak Dutch. But Google thinks I speak Dutch because I'm in Belgium, but I don't. Thank you, Google. And yes, you need the Windows binaries. Okay, you grab that. Wait a while for the download. Okay. And yes, this is a VM, so it's kind of slow for some reason, even though it's running on a Ryzen setup. I think it's because I have the virtual disk on a real hard disk and not an SSD, and yeah, hard drives are slow. Okay, so when you install Git, it will not only install Git, but it will, on Windows, it will do something very cool. It will give you a bash command prompt that is basically the same thing than the terminal on Linux. And why this is cool is because it allows me to give you instructions, only one type of instruction when it comes to console commands. I can just tell you to type in something like ls, and it's ls both on Linux and on git bash on Windows. I don't have to go through that dir nonsense or whatever. Same command for everything. Oh yeah, it's asking for a text editor, and you pick whatever you want. But since I have installed Notepad++ already, use that. Unless you want to use something else and you know how to use something else. But yeah, use Notepad++ if you don't want to figure out the others, because it's graphical and whatnot. Okay, here you don't change that. Yes, 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 and yeah, let it install. Nice. Okay, so we have Git now, and you'll notice when we right-click on a folder, we have this Git GUI and Git bash here prompts. What? What the fuck, man? Do we need to reboot? Huh. Okay, whatever. Yes, we have this git bash here prompt, and what that does is this opens a git bash prompt, so a terminal, in the folder you're right-clicking. So that's very convenient. Okay, next dependency we have to install a JDK. I go with the Oracle one here on Windows, but OpenJDK works fine. I've tested both. OpenJDK works fine. I support OpenJDK. I don't want people to be locked in to use the Oracle version of the JDK. So yeah, both are supported, but for convenience sake, I'm just going to grab the Oracle one. Yes, you can have my cookies. Alright. You want to get the Java 8 JDK, not the 9. The 9 will not work. I've tested junk stories with Java 9. There are some breaking changes in Java 9 that means it does not work. And if I want to make it work in Java 9, it doesn't work in Java 8. And since 99% of people don't run the Java 9 yet, it's not worth it. So yes, you accept the license agreement and you grab the x64 version, not the x86. x86 won't work, or at least it will work, but you'll have stupid bugs and you will not be able to allocate enough RAM. So forget about x86, get x64, please. Okay, grab that, download it. Yeah, this is going to take a while, so I'll just skip. Okay. Okay, so yeah, just let it do its thing. I mean, it's Java installer, it's not rocket science. If you struggle with this, maybe get good before you try to work on this. Yeah, copy files, blah blah blah. This is where it does something stupid. For some reason, it will open a new Windows. I mean, it did it last time. It will open a new Windows, and I'll have to click on something that is out of bounds. Yes. So there's this stupid Windows. I don't know why it does this. Maybe it's because I'm on a VM without graphical acceleration and I don't have the usual Windows style. But here you can see a next button that is almost entirely cut off. You wanna click on this? Yeah, thank you for this broken installer. Really appreciate it. And yeah, let it do its thing. 3 billion device from Java. Yeah, sure. Piece of shit, sure, yeah. You had that right, at least. Ugh. Not a fan of Oracle, I must say. And yeah, here we are. So the next step is, well, the next step is bullshit. It's something you have to do. Basically, when you install the JDK, for some reason, you do not get the ability to type in JDK commands in the terminal and have them execute. To do that, you have to change your path variable. So what I mean by this is there is some variable in Windows and on the Linux too, but on Linux it works okay, so you don't have to mess with it. But on here you have to basically tell it where Java is, because it doesn't know, or at least it knows, but it doesn't find all the Java things it needs. So yeah, you navigate to your Java JDK install directory, and there you take the bin folder. Make sure it's the bin folder. Yeah, you take that, put it somewhere where you can find it, and you want to edit the environment variables. So yes, edit system environment variables. Click on that, click on this box, and you want to look for pass under system variable, there it is, and edit it. And you can edit it in this tiny windows. Yeah, I mean you can, but for convenience you can also copy paste it somewhere else. And you're going to remove the Java pass entry, keep the semicolon there, and replace it by this. If you don't have a Java path entry, don't worry, just put this before everything else and make sure there is a semicolon there. Semicolon, I think it's semicolon in English, whatever. And you click OK. OK. And to check you've done this right, you can open a terminal, whether it's a usual Windows terminal or the Git one or the Git bash one you've just installed. It should be the same. And in here you type in something like javadoc. Javadoc is a tool installed by the JDK, and if you have regular Java, it won't work, but if you have the JDK properly installed, you will have this output, and it will show you all the various flags it can take. So this means we have installed the JDK properly. So hey, that's nice. Next, I'm going to download Eclipse. I'm going to reuse this bit of the video in the modding video, I think, because installing Eclipse is like not rocket science, and I don't want to record it twice. I already recorded it once, and my recording fucked up, so I'll do it once more. But yeah, whatever. Okay, to grab Eclipse, I mean, type it in Google, download it. Don't use the installer. I can never get the installer to work. I don't use that. I just directly download a package from this bit of the website. I typically choose the Eclipse IDE for Java EE developers. Junkstories does not use Java EE, but I like to use this version of Eclipse because it comes with better tools and stuff. And yeah, again, take the 64-bit version. It's always better. Download that. And here we go. And again, I'll skip, don't want to watch me download. Okay. Then you extract it. I mean, duh. And yeah, this takes a while too. Okay, now it's installed, and you just pin it to the taskbar, and there you have Eclipse. Alright, I can just launch it now. I don't want to launch it. Alright, Eclipse is installed now. I don't start it yet, I don't need to. What I need to do now is set up my my folder first. And by that I mean what I typically use is in my user home, I make a folder for Git, and typically I just call it Git. The point of this is to have these three repositories I'm going to clone. These three repositories, I want them to be in the same parent folder, so I can use relative paths to access one another. So I'll go ahead and create a folder here. I'll call it Git, and I can just right-click Git bash here and copy-paste these. So yes, yeah, I can close that one. Yeah, paste it. Two, and the file now one. This one is it takes a longer while because there's a lot of stuff in it. Okay. Okay, we need to build them, and to build them, we always need to have built the requirements, the dependencies. You can see I've traced arrows to see what depends on what. And you'll see everything basically depends on Chunk Stories API. And so we'll go and build that first. So you go into the Chunk Stories API folder, so that is cd space Chunk Stories API. Okay, and you type in Gradle w space install. What this will do is it will first it will install Gradle because it's not installed, but it will install it automatically, so I don't have to show you. It just happens. Yes, and it will then download everything Chunk Stories API depends on that is not on this graph and that is not made by me, or at least not a part of the Chunk Stories thing. So yeah, you can see it's downloading a bunch of crap. And what it will do once it has built it, it will put it in your local Maven repository. What do I mean by that is what, in a nutshell, what a Maven repository is. It's it's a place where you put in artifacts, and by artifacts I mean mostly jar files. So yeah, it has done it now, and it has created a M2 folder in my home directory, and in that M2 folder you'll find it has put the API 119 in that. API 119 is the current version of the development API. I mean, it is the current development version of the API, not the stable one. And for the stable version of the API and stable versions of the core, and by stable I mean version that come with a released version of the game that players can download, you don't have to do this because there's an online repository where I guarantee there is the stuff you need. But if you want to work on the game itself and not on a mod, or work using unreleased features, like currently I'm going through rewriting the rendering subsystems to make them modular, and when you're working on these development features, you want to build the API and the core yourself from the Git repository, and have them installed on your computer. So yeah, that is now installed in this M2 folder. And next I can do install the core. So this bit, this is the bit with all the game content. I mean, base game content. You can add content, that's the point of this. Well, anyway. So yeah, cd dot means previous directory or parent directory, and yes, chunks core. So yeah, chunks core now. And we do the same thing, that is Gradle W install. And yeah, it will install the core. So if you go in M2, once it's done, you will see you now have a core thing. Yeah, you also have a zip file. This zip file is basically core content.zip in your in what will be your usual client distribution. And this is the actual code, and this contains all the resources like the textures and whatnot. You don't really need to know this. Just type in Gradle W install first, and every time you modify something in this, and it will work. And now you can build chunk stories itself. So that is this big thing. Yes, in these big things, there are other smaller things, like subprojects. Subprojects, basically, chunk stories is empty. It has no source code. All the source code is into subprojects. Chunk stories is just a project that holds the other projects. So yes, you can see I have a client build.gradle. I have a server build.gradle, each time with source, command one, launcher one for the game launcher, and one for the maps converter that imports Minecraft's map. And yes, there we are. And we could just build all these projects by hand, but I have a special Gradle commands that do it all at once. So it's less work. So yeah, Gradle W build all. And yes, it downloads a bunch more crap. It takes a while. I'll skip ahead. Okay, done in 47 seconds. So now you can basically launch the game, and you'll have all the latest development features in that version of the game. And you just, in the chunk stories folder, with git bash, you type in /debug client.sh. Forget about the bash file, I'm going to delete it anyway. Now I ask people to use git bash. Yes, and I've warned you it won't work because this is a VM, and of course VMs don't have proper graphics drivers, so it basically crashes at startup. On a real system it works. I mean, I've done it many times. I just couldn't be bothered to. Well, first I don't have a capture card, and I don't have a lot of good spare PCs that could handle recording with OBS. So I just do it in a VM. But in a real machine, this works. And now you'd have the game prompt asking you for login and whatnot. You can launch servers. That works fine. So that will be debug server.sh. Well, that works fine as long as it can find a word. But we haven't created one yet, so yeah, that doesn't work either. But yeah, I'll make a guide for that in another video, a separate video. Okay, so now we have the command line stuff set up. I can show you how to set it up using Eclipse. First, I'll start it. Duh. And Eclipse, well, the latest versions of Eclipse are quite nice because they have Gradle integration. I don't distribute Eclipse files with the project because not everyone uses Eclipse, and I don't want to force it on anyone. And usually Eclipse project files are really full of reference to my local workspace, so it's not very portable. What I do is I add the Eclipse file to what Git ignores, so that is .gitignore file. So Eclipse files are not on the project's source tree. So yeah, if you look in here, there is nothing related to Eclipse. And I have Eclipse generate them when I import the project as a Gradle project. So yeah, you go to File, Import, Gradle, Existing Gradle project, and you pick wherever you installed that. You import each project one by one. So first, the API. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't show you. You have to select the Gradle wrapper when doing this. Make sure it's selected. If it's not, I'll show you for the next bit. Yes. Yes. Make sure this is selected. You don't need to override workspace settings, but make sure whatever is grayed out, this is selected. It usually is, but if you mess with it or whatever, make sure you use the Gradle wrapper. Else, bad things happen. Okay, so you can see now it has found me the first two projects, and I'm going to import the last bit of the puzzle. So that is the chunk stories implementation. And again, use the wrapper. Very nice. So, what can we see? We have a chunk stories project, and we have all this crap. This crap is actually the turquoise stuff here. So that is the sub-projects of chunk stories. Chunk stories, as I said, does not contain any code. All the code is in these. And these have dependencies that are stated by these arrows. So the client needs the server needs common, and basically everything needs common. Common is common to everything. Duh. And yeah. So yeah, Gradle integration in Eclipse is very simple. You import the project and it works. One interesting thing I can show you is how to run the game from Eclipse, because there are some things you have to set up for it to work. I mean, it won't work here because it's a VM, but it will crash when initializing the game, and on a real machine it will work. So do what I say. You make a new launch configuration for a Java application. You name it whatever you want. I mean, CS client, whatever. In the client subproject, you search for the main class, so this one. And here you have to set up one or two things. First, you want to select the chunk stories project, the root chunk stories project, as your working directory. You want it to run from this directory, not from this one, from this one. So to do that, you select other workspace and chunk stories. And in program arguments, you need to give it two arguments for it to work. You need to give it dir equals dot. So don't, what that asks the game to do is not use the default chunk stories home folder. So that is the one the release client will use, the one in app data and whatnot. Yeah, so here there will be dot chunk stories like .minecraft, and it will use that. But we don't want this here. You want to use the Git folder as its working directory, so you ask it to do so. And the other thing you want to ask it to is to look for the core content of the game, where we have the chunk stories core res folder. Basically, when the game starts, it looks for the vanilla content in a zip file in its in its working directory, but currently there is none because we are in a debug environment. So what we do is, since we have everything in the same parent directory, you can ask it to load the core from core equals / chunk stories core / res. And basically everything that is supposed to be in the core content.zip folder in the where it expects them to find, it basically is generated from this res folder. So yes, this is the code. This code is generated from this folder, and it has the mod.txt. Well, it has everything it needs. So this is the vanilla content. And yes, you apply these settings and you run it. And again, it will crash when initializing the screen because this is a VM. Yeah, I know, it doesn't work. Of course. On a real machine it does. And it's basically the same deal for the server, except the server don't need the there equals dot command line argument, because the server always uses the working directory as its working directory, if that makes sense to you. So yeah, I've shown you how you can use Eclipse to run the game. One neat thing about using Eclipse is, since Eclipse comes with its own compiler, and I've set the build configurations files to use that compiler, you can hot replace code anywhere. So let's say I have the client up and running, and I want to change something in core. I don't actually have to restart everything. If I'm just changing stuff inside a method, changing stuff in a way that you could hot replace code in a usual Eclipse project, this will work. So let's say I wanted to change something in this class. So let's say I wanted to change the max self that an entity can have to 150. I can do that, and if the game is running, this will update in real time. You don't have to recompile, relaunch the game. No, this works in real time. This is really, really, really convenient. So yeah, nice thing. Really nice thing to have. I have no idea how this will work under IntelliJ, because I don't use that. I'm going to figure that out on my own, and yeah, I'll make something about this. So anyway, thanks for watching. This was Groboros from the Chunk Stories development team. Have a nice day.